Respect is the quiet currency of every relationship, the invisible line that keeps dignity intact. It cannot be demanded without being offered, and it cannot thrive when only one side is giving. When respect becomes one-sided, it turns into control, resentment, or indifference. True respect is a reflection. It bounces back. It mirrors what you give. It's not about titles, age, or power, but about recognizing the humanity in each other, listening without judgment, and valuing the space we share. Respect is not something that can be forced or commanded simply because you hold a certain position, have a particular title, or carry more years of life. It is not a badge you wear that people must acknowledge. Real respect is born out of consistent actions that prove your integrity, your fairness, and your ability to value others as equals in humanity. When you act in a way that aligns with honesty, empathy, and responsibility, people naturally respond with respect. It becomes a natural exchange, not an obligation. The truth is, words are easy. They can be spoken without thought. They can be rehearsed. They can even be manipulated to sound humble or kind. But actions carry weight, and they reveal the real substance of who you are. A person may tell the world they deserve respect, but if their behavior is laced with arrogance, disregard for others, or hypocrisy, no amount of verbal demand will create genuine admiration. Respect built on fear is not real respect, it is compliance. Compliance fades as soon as the power dynamic shifts. But respect earned through action leaves a lasting impression that remains even when your authority or influence is gone. People remember how you treated them when you had the chance to look down on them. They remember if you listened or dismissed, if you lifted them or belittled them. Earning respect requires a kind of self-awareness that goes beyond ego. It's not about thinking you are the most important voice in the room, but about knowing that every voice has value and every perspective has weight. You do not have to agree with everyone to respect them, but you have to acknowledge their right to be heard. This acknowledgement is where respect takes root. The small gestures matter. Keeping your word when it's inconvenient, speaking to people without condescension, showing up on time, honoring commitments even when no one is watching. These acts might seem ordinary, but they build a foundation people can trust. There is a quiet power in being the kind of person whose behavior speaks louder than their demands. When others see that you act with consistency, they feel safe to place their trust in you. Trust is the soil where respect grows. And just like a garden, it needs tending. It cannot be neglected or taken for granted. One disrespectful act can undo years of trust, and the repair is never instant. That is why the day-to-day choices you make carry such weight. People are always observing, consciously or unconsciously, whether your values align with your actions. Earning respect through action also means holding yourself to the same standards you expect from others. You cannot demand punctuality and then arrive late without explanation. You cannot insist on loyalty and then betray the confidence of those who believed in you. Hypocrisy corrodes respect faster than any single mistake. Mistakes can be forgiven when paired with accountability. Hypocrisy, however, signals that your values are negotiable depending on your advantage. That will make others withdraw their trust, and once trust is withdrawn, respect is not far behind. Sometimes earning respect requires doing what is right even when it costs you something. It may mean speaking up against unfairness even if it makes you unpopular. It may mean admitting you were wrong in a way that risks your pride. It may mean choosing patience over retaliation when you feel disrespected yourself. These choices are difficult because they test the strength of your character. People are not just watching what you do when everything is easy. They are paying closer attention when the stakes are high. And it is in those moments that your actions have the power to earn respect that lasts far beyond the moment itself. Earning respect is also about consistency, not occasional displays of goodness. Anyone can be kind for a day, polite for an afternoon, or generous when it benefits them. But people measure your character over time. If your kindness disappears the moment you are under stress, or your fairness fades when it no longer suits you, the respect you might have gained will dissolve. True respect is built on a track record, on patterns that people can rely on. Consistency tells people, "This is who I am," and they begin to trust that who you are will not change when circumstances shift. The reason actions hold so much weight is that they require intention. You cannot accidentally keep your word. You must decide to keep it. You cannot accidentally show empathy. You must choose to listen, to care, to try to understand. These choices reveal your priorities, and people respect those whose priorities extend beyond their own ego. When you consistently act in a way that protects the dignity of others, they instinctively respond with a level of regard that cannot be bought, forced, or faked. Earning respect also means being able to stand on your own principles without needing constant validation. If you only act with integrity when others are watching, then your motivation is approval, not principle. But when your actions remain the same whether you are in public or private, it signals authenticity. Authenticity is rare, and it commands respect without you ever having to demand it. Even in disagreement, respect can be earned when your actions show restraint and fairness. You do not need to raise your voice to be heard, and you do not need to diminish someone else to make your point. The ability to debate without disrespect, to assert yourself without arrogance, and to disagree without hostility sets you apart. People may not always agree with you, but they will respect the way you carry yourself in the conversation. There is also a humility in earning respect that many overlook. It comes from knowing you are not above learning, not too important to listen, and not too proud to admit you have room to grow. When you combine humility with consistent action, you create a reputation that speaks for itself. People begin to respect you not just for what you have achieved, but for the way you achieved it. Your words may inspire, but your actions are what prove the truth behind them. One-sided respect is like trying to balance a scale with weight on only one side. It will always tilt, always feel unstable, and eventually it will collapse. When respect flows in only one direction, it creates an imbalance that eats away at the very heart of trust. The person giving respect feels unvalued, unseen, and unappreciated, while the one receiving it without reciprocation begins to take it for granted. This is how relationships, whether personal, professional, or even between strangers, start to fracture. Respect cannot survive in an environment where it is not met with equal regard, because respect by nature is meant to be an exchange, not a transaction where only one party invests. When respect is one-sided, it often turns into tolerance rather than genuine admiration. The person giving it may continue to show politeness or compliance, but underneath there is a quiet erosion happening. Politeness without true respect is like a mask. It hides the reality of disconnection, but the moment pressure builds, the mask slips. Over time, resentment begins to replace sincerity. The giver starts to feel like their efforts are invisible, that their voice is not heard, and that their worth is being overlooked. What was once a willing act of regard becomes an emotional obligation, and obligations without mutuality drain the human spirit. In many cases, one-sided respect is fueled by power imbalances. A boss expects respect from employees, but never acknowledges their contributions. A family member demands deference because of age, but refuses to listen to the younger generation. A friend expects loyalty in difficult times, but disappears when you are the one in need. These patterns create environments where respect becomes conditional and lopsided, and in such spaces trust cannot fully form. Trust needs to know that if you step forward in respect, the other person will meet you halfway. Without that assurance, people begin to guard themselves, holding back the very respect they once gave freely. The danger in one-sided respect is that it can be mistaken for weakness by those who receive it without returning it. They may assume the giver will always comply, always support, and always endure without limits. This assumption leads to exploitation, where the respect is no longer valued as a gift, but expected as a given. Once respect becomes an expectation without effort, it loses its meaning entirely. Genuine respect is something both sides work to maintain. It is not automatic, and it does not survive neglect. Mutual respect is built on the recognition that both people have value, perspective, and dignity worth protecting. One-sided respect ignores this truth by placing one person on a higher pedestal and treating the other as though their worth is conditional. This dynamic breeds bitterness in the long term because the human spirit instinctively knows when it is being undervalued. Even the most patient and giving individuals eventually reach a point where their silence breaks, and when it does, the relationship often cannot recover to what it once was. In a healthy relationship, respect is not kept score like a transaction, but it is felt equally. You do not have to mirror every gesture exactly, but the intention must be there. If someone listens to you with full attention, you make an effort to give the same courtesy. If someone values your time, you take care not to waste theirs. These small, consistent acts create balance, and balance creates stability. Without balance, even the strongest bonds begin to strain under the weight of unmet expectations. One-sided respect also sends a dangerous message. It tells the world that one person's needs, boundaries, and opinions matter more than the others. This is not just unfair, it is unsustainable. In professional settings, it leads to burnout. In families, it creates emotional distance. In friendships, it turns connection into convenience. Wherever one-sided respect exists, someone is sacrificing their own self-worth just to keep the peace. Over time, that sacrifice builds into quiet resentment, and resentment left unspoken often turns into separation. A person who gives respect without receiving it back may also start to doubt themselves. They may question whether they are doing something wrong, whether they are unworthy of the same treatment they offer. This self-doubt is corrosive. It can make someone shrink themselves to fit into spaces where they are not valued, just to maintain the illusion of harmony. But the truth is, the lack of respect is not a reflection of their worth. It is a reflection of the other person's inability or unwillingness to give it. Still, this understanding does not erase the emotional cost of constantly giving without receiving. One-sided respect is often disguised by surface-level gestures. Someone might say "thank you," or offer occasional kindness, but fail to show up when it truly matters. They might give small tokens of appreciation, while ignoring the deeper needs for acknowledgement, fairness, and empathy. These surface gestures can temporarily mask the imbalance, but they cannot replace the genuine foundation of mutual respect. The cracks will always show over time, especially when challenges arise and the real test of respect comes into play. The most telling sign of one-sided respect is the lack of reciprocity when boundaries are crossed. In mutual respect, if one person feels hurt or disrespected, the other listens, apologizes if necessary, and makes an effort to change. In one-sided respect, boundaries are often ignored or dismissed, and the person who feels disrespected is made to feel as though their reaction is an overstatement. This constant invalidation chips away at confidence and trust, making the relationship more fragile with each repeated offense. Mutual respect requires both parties to actively maintain it, to see it not as an automatic right but as an ongoing responsibility. It means recognizing that no matter the role, status, or history, both people deserve to be treated with fairness and dignity. Without this balance, respect becomes hollow, an empty performance rather than a genuine connection. And when respect becomes hollow, the relationship built on it will always carry a hidden fracture that deepens with time.